I'm Hanna Hurst with Equal Rights Advocates. I'm on the board of directors, and here with me today is Jessie Lavoie. She is the executive director of YWCA Alaska. So we would just want to talk about the current administration and the policies and how they've impacted our communities. And specifically, why don't you start by telling us about your grant and the Talking Circles program?
Yeah. So YWCA Alaska was awarded a $500,000 earmark from Senator Murkowski's office back in June of 2024. And it was at a time when we really needed some funding, and that leg up. The budget had been shrinking at that point, and it was for youth program expansion and Talking Circle method, which is what we had proposed. So we decided with the interim at the time, I wasn't CEO at the time, I was the board chair, actually. And we decided we would go forward with it and see where that went. And so we were awarded the funding officially, and then we had it for the fiscal year of September 2024 all the way through September of 2025. And it was originally meant to be a 5-year grant. And when Trump was elected, we quickly realized it would be a 1-year grant. So we tried to do the best we could with the 1 year we had. And so we partnered with Campfire, and we got into schools, and we did talking circles about emotional intelligence and just mental health, because racism is a mental health challenge, but without actually even calling it that. And it was really successful. It was really wonderful. The site directors for Campfire absolutely loved it. The kids loved it. And then we had to figure out what to do with no more funding. So,
can you talk about, so when Senator Murkowski's office appropriates, it's basically the office sees a need in the community?
We think so. That's what I'm a little ashamed to admit. I don't know exactly how we stumbled into the purview of Senator Murkowski's office. We're grateful though. From our understanding going through the process, there was probably some back work that the previous executive director and CEO had done to at least make them aware of the work we were doing. But really, it is the office and Murkowski seeing the need in the community and offering up the budget. And she was chair of the appropriation committee at the time. So,
got it. So, how did you pivot then when you lost the money? You're going to talk about basically you could have kept the grant, right?
Mm-hmm. We could have kept the grant, sort of. So we knew, with all the language coming out and with the fight against DEI, we knew that we weren't going to get that grant for the next 4 years. But with the program officers at the granting office, SAMHSA, the grant officers had offered us a no-cost extension. And so because of all the executive orders coming out of no DEI, there was a large portion of our budget we couldn't do, which was actually a DEI workshop for educators at ASD. And we decided not to do that because we knew that wasn't going to fly anymore. And that portion of that budget, we were told we could use as an extension to the end of the calendar year, and we could use it as payroll for our staff. So we went through that process. It took about 2 months to do that no-cost extension paperwork and get it seen and get it to the point of approval. It stopped just short because they said because of these executive orders, we had to remove all language of DEI in the no-cost extension and in the original grant application, which was already approved and funded. And at that point, we knew that we would be turning our back on the mission. And so we and the board had decided to not move forward with that no-cost extension, knowing we would be really cornered and unable to do the work effectively and as intended. And we walked away.
And what is the mission of YWCA Alaska?
Eliminating racism and empowering women. 4 naughty words on the government list. So that because of that alone, simply because of the mission alone, we knew we couldn't move forward ethically. And we knew that we had that ability to be nimble when other YWCAs in the lower 48 don't. They have to be able to bend to that will because that funding is just too detrimental to lose for them. And so we feel empowered to be able to stand on the mission for them so that they can protect their communities how they see fit.
As far as those talking circles and those having to stop, how do you think that impacted the kids that were a part of that program?
I mean, I would hope that they, the kids that we were able to engage with, have the tools that they need to continue to have those conversations about, why their friend that doesn't look like them feels down or is angry, or why their friend that doesn't look like them is happy when they're down and angry. Or for our teenage group that, they're seeing and hearing all this news coming in and trying to process it and protect their mental health, that maybe we provided a couple of tools to help them, that they can help each other and help their friends, and it'll spread from there. But no doubt it's going to have a negative impact on the community. These kids are already under an immense amount of stress without the world news, and now they don't necessarily have that cultivated safe space to have those conversations. And we worry that the future generations, or the next generations, or the younger ones, the ones we weren't able to engage with, won't feel comfortable and won't have the tools that they need. And that's only going to roll downhill from there. So we're trying to figure out what we can do to support moving forward without having $500,000 in our budget. But it's limited. It's very limited.
And that was $500,000 a year, right?
$500,000 a year.
So just walk me through, when your staff would show up at campfire, these are childcare programs, right?
Yeah.
So how did the talking circle work? I just want to, because I feel like I need a talking circle in my life.
Me too. I had gone to one or two. So the kind of how those circles would go. For our youth circles, our staff member would begin them. We would show up at the after school site for campfire. We would get, I think, about 2 hours with them. So kind of at the tail end of the day after the school's ended, but after they've kind of tried to run out some of that energy. And our program coordinator and our program manager would sit down with them, literally get them in a circle, and just, how did your day go today? And just kind of really start kind of basic, kind of just natural, organic conversation, just to kind of get them out of their shells, and also kind of to see do we need to expend some more energy? And through that, they would find different topics and be able to kind of expand on. So the ones that I had gone to, one was, I'm really worried about my friends. They didn't come to school today, and I know they're having a hard time at home. Okay, let's talk about how can we help them when they get back to school. Others, it was, my parents are fighting about politics at home, and I don't know what it means, and which is always a touchy subject, right? So kind of just being how did it make you feel? And, talking to your parents about how it makes you feel, if it's making you feel uncomfortable, or if you want to engage in the conversation. And then usually it turns into just, trying to get the energy out and kind of coming back into the circle. And these are young kids, and so they have a lot going on. And after sitting all day in class, it's hard to get them to sit in a circle, but successfully they've done it. Our teen group, though, they went through a bit more of a rigorous circle, but also experience. So they would take a week, usually it was around spring break, and they would be with us for a week, and they would go do community service projects around Anchorage. But before that, they would come together for about 4 hours, and we would talk about all sorts of things. So kind of the same thing of what are you experiencing? What are your concerns? What keeps you up at night? But in a more mature way, right? Because these are teens, and so, they're smart, and they're figuring this out, and they know that they are feeling something, and also still trying to put words to it. So kind of talking about that, and then taking them out into the community to do a project of some sort, to show them, for one, the nonprofit sector, but also what community building is. And when the world feels like it's too much, they can go have a positive impact locally, and that matters. That's the impact we have. And then we wrap it all up with kind of some other just skills for them to have, like first aid and financial awareness, but really focusing every morning on what are you feeling and how can we talk about it? And usually with their parents too, which was lovely.
So ERA also had a grant canceled as a result of our current administration. And the Women's Bureau is a very tiny agency within the Department of Labor. Yeah. And they awarded $350,000 to equal rights advocates to do training and education on anti-harassment and anti-discrimination, anti-violence in workplaces. Mm-hmm. I actually came to know equal rights advocates because I worked at a remote work site here in Alaska, a remote mine. I was an underground gold miner, and It's a pretty tough work environment. So I can imagine some of those same kids when they can grow up and have opportunities to go to work. The training is important because I got the training on a new EEO training from being in the military, from being in the Army.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that the mine was training us on.
Right.
So understanding what's okay and what's not okay. Mm-hmm. So it was unfortunate that that work can't take place now.
Right. And it's a shame. Like for us, it's just such a simple touch point. But like you said, it kind of like later in life, you're gonna stumble upon that, and you may or may not be exposed to EEO or fully understand it, or DEI or whatever we want to call it now. It still exists. But another thing that we do with our youth, or really even with our young women as well, is show them and share with them all sorts of different career trajectories and what to expect. So you were in mining. What was it like when you started, middle, and now? Like, surely you've seen this massive wave of change from, and it might even feel a little bit like before.
Well, I don't work at mining anymore.
Okay, good.
I do follow someone on Facebook that's still at the mine where I work, and she's been there 11 years, and she's probably made it to the top. I'm pretty sure. I just from following her on Facebook. I did message her the other day and say, hey, are you getting any leadership opportunities? Are you getting to be a relief shifter? Right. Like moving into, once you've been there long enough, that would be the next thing. And I know when I was there, no way in hell. No way. They just weren't going to have it, Right. So I hope it's a better place for women to work as a result of what I went through.
I hope so too. I just worried, like now, I worry now. I just worry as a woman in those spaces. I know I had a brief stint in the sciences when I first started my professional career, and it was tough even then. The quick little couple years that I did it out of school, and I can't imagine, like, especially now, like getting rights or like making progress, and then in the last year or two feeling like it's being pulled away. We actually have a wonderful story of a daughter who goes by they, them, of a committee member of ours in the advocacy committee, and they joined, both of his kids actually did, and they had such a wonderful experience that we weren't expecting it to be so impactful on them. They're pretty introverted, and like we think of introversion, and like they go home and they just read books and they don't want to go out to party, but like really like they were in on themselves. They were turned in, and trying to figure out what they want to do, but also again feeling all this stuff from the world and having a hard time articulating what it is and how to react and how to appropriately react. And their parents are very very community-based human beings, and so they're trying their best to support their kiddo. And so they came to our youth circle, youth councils at that point. When we deal with teenagers, we call them councils, and just that experience alone has completely opened them up. So not only are they able to articulate what they're feeling, and they are on the autism scale as well, so we have an added layer of challenge, but they can articulate what they're feeling, and they can pick up what they're feeling or what other people are feeling and actually have a pretty comfortable conversation. They've gotten into theater since then. They love,
awesome.
Super
That's
great.
super cool.
Yeah, I was like, okay, went straight to the extrovert side. I'm loving that for them. And they come to our community conversation series. So we hold a number of community conversations about policy or about implicit bias, topics that are challenges for all of us and how they impact the community. And they come to those and have engage in the conversation as an adult, which is just lovely. And so to see that shift, and it's not just us noticing that, their parents have noticed that and brought it up to us of this was a cornerstone moment in my child's life to be able to get them to blossom and get them to articulate their own thoughts in an effective way. And it was really, really great to see.
Let's just circling back around to the harm, but I think about the positions you had to lay people off, right? As a result of losing the grant. So what are those, what were your staff members doing now in this? Do you think there's any chance that they could come back and do this kind of work again?
I mean, that's my hope. So we knew that we would only be able to keep one of the staff members of the three I was able to hire from that grant. And again, in mind with that this would be a 5-year program potentially. And that didn't happen. So we let go to our director and our coordinator, and I mean, we're still noticed. That was actually November, and then we had one that left at the end of December part-time, so we moved him to part-time. And we're still noticing the capacity, just having them in the office and the capacity of just getting things done day to day, let alone going out into the youth circles and the councils to do the work, has been severely limited because of simply capacity. And then we are also now missing that expertise, right? Like the two that I had hired for the director and the coordinator were specific, like they had youth focused careers prior to that, and understood their privilege in the community and how to use it. So we're also missing that skill set to be able to continue. It's directly impacting the organization on a basic level now at this point. And I think there's, something to be said about, nonprofits relying on federal grants. And like, I now know the lesson of diversifying funding. I knew that before, but I'm definitely feeling it now. Mm-hmm. But I think that narrative of, you can't rely on just a federal grant. While there's a kernel of truth to that, there's no making up $500,000 a year later. It's just not there, right? Like, and especially here in Alaska, where we have resource scarcity with our nonprofits. And I'm not one that subscribes to like, there's only so much money and like everyone's fighting for the same pot of money. I think everyone has different pots of money, but those pots of money are smaller. And the community is not going to be able to give us $500,000. So, and the same thing with organizations, I'm sure like ERA too, where you get that sudden removal and then all of a sudden you're having to make up that budget. I mean, the community and individuals and donors just don't understand. And that's just such a massive gap to fill. Right. And it becomes overwhelming. And what are your concerns for the youths?
Well, I have a girlfriend that was telling me they just moved to Pennsylvania, but they moved from Florida. And they had her daughter, who's an 8th grader this year, had a friend that was she's thinking might have to go back to her country. I'm not sure about what the situation is, but I fear for children right now. The schools, what teachers, they're going to, be concerned that their teachers are going to be ripped from their classrooms. Right. I just don't think it's not good for learning. It's not good for healthy development. Just so much fear going on right now that I definitely worry about that.
Yeah, us too. And I think because we aren't in with the circles like we were too, like we're missing out on being able to help kind of guide this conversation, because we have kids here that are feeling that. I mean, we have one of the most diverse communities in all of America, Mountain View, or at least at one point it was.
Sure.
They're feeling this intensely with little resources, right? I do. I can't imagine. Right now. That's tough.
Yeah, I definitely, like for Hanna, actually, she's named after me, my friend's 8th grader. With all of that fear and, you can't be as focused on those activities that help, you grow stronger and learn confidence, because there's a lot of, worry. And so that's what you need. You need to have a lot of confidence to go out and face. My dad always told me you can do any job you want to do. And that's probably why I decided to work at an underground gold mine, because I said, well, I'll check it out. Maybe I can do it and maybe it'll be cool. And, I stayed 7.5 years, and it was hard at the end. But so, being able to have women now, young girls, like go to talking circles and realize that they can choose. It's okay to choose a non-traditional job. It's okay to go after something that maybe is not the path that a nurse or a teacher, the traditional female, lines of work. It's okay to do different things.
Yeah. I also, I think that's one of our main concerns at the YWCA too. And me just personally, I first started with the YWCA, and I think I might have told you this before when we first met. I was a girls' circle facilitator, which is what we modeled youth circles after. And so it was just for girls. And I remember I was at Willow Elementary, and I had 12 girls. trying to manage 12 girls after school is really tough. But I remember sitting there thinking, like, there's no way these girls are, like, hearing any of this curriculum. Like, I would have to, like, run them as well. So we would play hide and seek for half of it just to, like, expend energy. And I'm like, they're not picking up a darn thing. And then there was a tipping point. There was a turning point that was really tragic, but what came of it was so beautiful. And so 3 of the girls were cousins, and they all lived in the same apartment building, and there was an apartment fire. And I got to the school the next day, and the director at the time of the school, the after-school programming was different then. He took me aside and he's like, hey, 3 of your girls were in this apartment fire, and they escaped with what's on them. So they're in their pajamas. Like, it's a rough situation. So they're real sleepy. And I was like, and I just looked at me. He's like, you're going to have a good time. You don't have to run them around. And I was like, that's funny, but not really. And I came into the classroom, and everyone was real mellow, real low. And I was just like, I don't really know what to do here. Because again, I'm like, these girls aren't picking up on anything I was throwing down. But they totally did. And so the others immediately recognized that their friends needed help. And so they looked at me and they were like, Miss Jessie, can we just like lounge around and lay around and read books and watch the TV? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because they knew that's what those girls needed. What those girls needed was sleep. But that really, from that moment, really that group grew after that. And so we started to talk about the things that were in this curriculum that I was like, this isn't happening. But they were. So they started asking all sorts of questions after that of like, oh, I think I want to be this. Or like, oh, like my friend wants to be a veterinarian, and like kind of make fun of her because for the time that was something to make fun of. And it was just really magical to see. And I worry about those spaces not existing anymore for those girls, right? For me, like I kind of, it sounds similar, but like my dad was like, you can do whatever you want. And, okay, off I go into the sciences, be a marine biologist. And I mean, it was a male dominated field, and I was fortunate that I had a woman at each point in my career development that was there to guide me. Mm-hmm. But again, kind of the same thing now. I'm like, are they still there? And do they feel empowered to continue to do that work in the face of this animosity that's happening at the federal level and at this cultural shift that's almost feeling like it's forced? I don't know.
Taking us back to the 50s. That's what I feel sometimes.
Yeah. What would you tell our lawmakers right now? What we need as women and as leaders in the community?
Well, I mean, immediately I think about what's happening in Minneapolis. So yeah, I mean, we've got to get that under control and treat people with respect with regards to the mission. Right. I'm for legal immigration. And but people still deserve to be treated with respect and handled professionally, not beat up.
Do you feel like they listen? Have you reached out and do you feel like they listen?
That's what I want our government officials to listen and to conduct their staff, to demand that that's how their staff act. That's what I feel is most, it's pertinent right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of my board members had described this beautifully last night. She's like, it feels like it's screaming into the void every time she writes a senator or a House representative. And I was like, yeah, I can relate to that because we've written many an email, we've called, we've sent love notes and some tough love notes. And it feels like screaming into the void. And so to your point, I think it's the same. Like, we just need them to listen. Like, I know for me, like with 2 of them, if I send them an email, I'm getting a response back that has absolutely nothing to do with the content. We can't let something like Minneapolis happen in Alaska, or really just any of the rollbacks we're seeing, right? Like access to healthcare, or like really shrinking the ability of healthcare, or making it more expensive, or immigration. I think about my time as a marine biologist, and I did a stint as an observer, a groundfish observer. I mean, those canneries and those at-sea processors, don't let anyone fool you, but they're immigrants, and no one else is doing those jobs, right? And so, like, our whole fishery could collapse simply because, for the first time ever, no human power to do it, which is wild. It's wild to me to think that. So yeah, same. I would hope that they listen.
Right. And act. Do something. Do something to stop this madness.
Yeah, even just denounce it, right? Like, I think we see from our representatives in particular a lot of a lot of political theater and a lot of pivoting when really they need just to lean in and like know that the community is going to support them. Like I just heard that there was a protest in Fairbanks, which I say that like facetiously, but it's Fairbanks, deep red, and it was -40, and there were 200 people out going like, no ice. And I'm like, okay, they can't not listen now. If Fairbanks is out there in -40, you know it's some serious stuff.
How about what gives you hope for the future? That's kind of the...
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to feel hope lately. This last year, just like with my job and then having like, and the same thing for you, being on your right advocates, like, and being on the board, and like when you first were there to now, when you first started, was probably a very different picture than what we have right now. But I find glimmers. And so, you know, and the fact that they're getting out there and we're seeing our communities now actually stand up, because my fear has always been like, we're just gonna be complacent, right? And we're just like, oh, they're just gonna, they'll do what's best for us. And, you know, I tried to tell them, but now that's not enough. So we're standing up, and that gives me hope. We'll come together.
I do think in the midst of a lot of tragedy and times where there's fear, people do stand up. They're more present for each other. Mm-hmm. And a picture I saw on the internet was 200 clergy that put their stoles on and marched through the streets of Minneapolis, you know, and I'm sure did a lot of praying and, you know, looking for ice, I guess, to tape them or, you know, just be a presence of peace, hopefully in the midst of all that chaos, to try to negate that somewhat. So did you catch the article about the Tufts PhD student who was detained by ICE? Mm-mm. And she made it all the way from the East Coast, you know, transported through all the different ways, got to a detention camp in Louisiana, and she was there for 6 weeks. She had written some anti-Israeli work, and so it's coming out that it was probably because of that writing that she was detained, and they did let her go. But she wrote a piece for Vanity Fair, and it was just talking about how the women in these detention camps really are there for each other, like in the kindness and the fear. There is, you know, they'll go over and they'll help. You know, look, you can, you know, turn this crate and make a stand next to your bed, and you know, just all the kind things that happened in the midst of all that. And there are some bad things that happen in those detention camps. Yeah. It's really sad.
That's right. I look for those glimmers.
I mean, this is in our own country.
Right.
The best country in the world. Mm-hmm. This is how we're treating people.
The glimmers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I focus on, is the glimmers.
So one of the goals of the podcast is to create a vision of our country that we want to build, a country that works for all of us. So Jessie, what would a healed and thriving version of our country look like to you?
I think a healed and thriving country would look like actually learning from the past and not letting history repeat itself, which we're in a watershed moment of that right now, of standing up to tyranny, standing up for our rights. And I think seeing the other side of what we're seeing right now, the other side, the success, is what I hope for this nation. As, you know, communities of people, tens of thousands of people across the U.S. were like, no more. We cannot do this anymore. And our communities are too important, and everyone in them is too important. And really saying that loud.
For me, it would just be that we respect each other in spite of our differences, that we can discuss our differences and we can say, that's not how I exactly feel, but I respect you for that. And it's okay to feel that way. And we can work for a solution that everybody's happy with.
Yeah. Yeah. That agree to disagree. That'd be nice to bring that back and actually be civil.
Yeah. I think we just have to persist, right? And we just have to continue to treat other people kindly. And when we feel like we can't, you know, things aren't going our way and we just want to go get in our corner, it's like, no, you know, we have to come back and talk to each other and see the humanity and appreciate and have gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Same vein. Because I often tell my board when we meet every month, because it's time to persist and resist, team. And so that's what I would tell everyone else. It's persist and resist. And lean in. It's real easy right now. And we also have these discussions at our leadership, about, apathy and just kind of going with the flow. And it's not, we see another tragedy and it's kind of like, all right, I'm just going to scroll past that. That now is not the time to scroll past it anymore. Like, you need to witness it and you need to do something about it. If you're feeling compelled, you need to. And will say, and as much as it still feels like screaming into the void, writing and calling and emailing legislators, that does mount up. Their staff are actually collecting all of that. Now, I won't say it's irrefutable evidence because the last couple of weeks, but it's evidence nonetheless. It's effort, and it shows, and it does matter. It does matter. So resist and persist.
Yeah. We have to let our decision makers know this is not the America we want to live in.
Right.
Yeah. We value our neighbors that are different. Well, thank you for joining us for the Equal Rights Advocates for All of Us podcast. Jessie, I appreciate you talking with me and being a part of this. Thanks for the work that you do here for our state.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be here and to be invited, engaged in the conversation, and working with our partners, our coalition partners at ERA.
Awesome.